Hello and welcome to TrackVia's Tip-Off, our 2021 latest features being presented to you today by Derek and Isaac, our dream team. All right, we have some quick little housekeeping things to go over first. And within that, we just want you to know that you have started in listen-only mode. We'd like you to stay that way so you can listen to the entire presentation. We will have options for you to ask questions, and please do that via the chat window, and we will try to get to them. And we will actually have portions within this presentation that you will be able to ask questions directly. So we will get to those as quickly as we can. This webinar is being recorded as well, and we will send you that recording with a follow-up email within 48 hours after the presentation. That's all for the housekeeping today. So I'm going to turn this over to Isaac and let's get started.
Sure thing. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. As Michelle mentioned, my name is Isaac Linder. I'm a product manager here at TrackVia, helping to manage the roadmap for our mobile and backend teams. I'm super excited to be here with Derek, but I'm gonna let him kick it off and then we'll get to me a little bit later in the presentation. So Derek, good morning.
All right. Good morning, Isaac. Good morning, everyone on the line. Thanks for joining our monthly admin webinar. For those of you I don't know, I'm Derek. I lead our customer education efforts here at TrackVia. So this month, excited for our agenda because we are talking about brand new TrackVia features. So this is fun. You're going to learn hopefully some stuff, some new ways, some new features that you can leverage in TrackVia to help you get the most value out of the tool that you can. So we're going to kind of break this webinar up into two sections here. I'm going to run through a couple of new features, and then we're going to do a question section where we do questions for those set of features. And then we're going to turn things over to Isaac, and he's going to talk to you about a couple more features, and then we're going to do more questions at the end. So as we're going through this, make sure you're getting your questions in as you get them or as they come up for you. So then when we get to the question section, sections, we can just jump in and do them. So let's look at the agenda here. First feature we're going to be talking about today is the mobile preview. This allows you to see what a form would look like if it's viewed on the mobile device directly within the web designer or the form designer within the web. So we'll take a look at that feature. We will look at some of the new functionality that we've added to views when you place them on dashboards and forms. We'll look at my personal favorite new feature, Weblinks on dashboards, which allow you to put buttons on your dashboard that link out to URLs. And then the last one I'm going to talk to you about is the ability to export charts as an image, as a PNG file. Okay. Like I said, then we'll do some questions. We'll turn it over to Isaac, who's going to talk to us about integrating with sandbox environments, which is a really useful feature for those of you that are going to be building integrations. And then we will talk about our newest, latest, and greatest feature, FasTrack, which allows us to digitize physical forms. So we're saving the best for last. And then, of course, we're going to bring it back together with questions, takeaways, and wrap things up. So first part of the webinar today, we're not going to do a ton of slides here in the beginning. I'm just going to jump right over into a TrackVia account to talk to you about these features. So let's jump into the first one, mobile form preview. So you should see on my screen, I am looking at a TrackVia account. This is the TrackVia University account. If any of you have taken the on-demand courses or instructor-led courses, this may look familiar or feel familiar to you. This is an order management application for a fictitious company that sells cell phones to celebrities, okay? There are two different types of people that log into this application. There are sales reps that actually place orders, and then there are managers that log in to see the reporting and the real-time data associated with those orders, okay? So we're gonna be kind of looking at those two avenues today. So for this first feature, let's talk about how to understand what a form looks like on mobile. So we have this nice form on the dashboard here to submit an order. Okay, the sales reps will fill this out to submit orders. If you are an admin and you are designing that form for your sales reps, you might want to know what that's going to look like on mobile. Perhaps the sales reps access TrackVia quite often on their mobile devices. So there's two ways that you can figure that out, right? You can pick up your phone, download the app, log in, find the form, and check out what that form looks like, right? Now that's certainly a possibility. You can do that if you'd like, but we've added a new feature that allows you to view it right when you're designing that form in real time. So the way that you would use that is you would edit the form. Okay, so I'm going to go to my forms dropdown, find the form that we're looking at here. This is it. So as I'm designing this, I can click on this button here in the upper right-hand corner to launch the mobile preview. Okay, if I click on that, I get a screen that pops up and you'll see that preview of the form on the right. Okay, it shows me the order that the fields are going to be in, what the fields will kind of look like. You can even see that the sections are respected with their colors throughout the form, right? So one thing to keep in mind here is that the Android app and the iOS app, they do have slight differences. So this form preview that you see here, it may not be 100% exact, but it should give you a really good idea of what that's going to look like on mobile. So now you just don't need to jump over to your phone and check it out and hit save a bunch of times while you're designing it and checking it out on mobile. You can just see the form preview. Okay, pretty straightforward feature there, but hopefully it'll save you some clicks, some time when you're designing your forms. Let's jump back to our sales rep home dashboard and talk about our next improvement that we've made. And this is almost like two features bundled into one conversation here, right? But we've made improvements to the way that views get displayed on dashboards, okay? So let's direct our attention to the upper right corner of this dashboard here, okay? We can see two buttons. This first button is part of a shortcut panel on the dashboard that will, if we click on it, it will open a view. And that view is designed to show the sales reps the large orders that they've placed this month, okay? So if they click it, it'll bring them to the view, they see those large orders. This button is a flow. It's designed to help them fulfill orders, right? So if the sales reps need to also fulfill their orders, they can click on the flow and go through a series of steps, okay? Now, you may see here, it's a little small, so you may have to lean in and look at it, right? But there's these little bubbles that are going to appear in the upper right corner of this flow. This one says 51, and there's a little 0 that appears on that button on this month's large orders view. One piece of feedback that we got from customers was that if a sales rep wanted to know how many large orders they placed that month, they had to click into the button to see that view, to see how many orders were in there. Or if they needed to fulfill records, to figure out if they actually needed to fulfill records, they needed to click into the flow to see if there were any records that they needed to fulfill. And this was just taking time. You'd have to click into it, you'd have to click back out if there was nothing. So we made an improvement to give the sales reps, and any button that leads to a view on a dashboard, visibility into how many records are behind the buttons. So for example, if I click on this button, there are no records in this view. That's why it says 0. If I go back to my dashboard and click on this flow, I should see that there are 51 records that need to be fulfilled. And I can see that down here in the bottom right, okay? So it just shows me, and anybody looking at those buttons, how many records are behind those buttons, okay? So hopefully that'll be a time saver. So anybody that's clicking into those doesn't have to go in to check if there's anything there. They can see if there's anything there at a glance, okay? The other improvement that we've made to views on dashboards, and let's scroll down just a little bit here, is this view. Let's look at this orders view down here. Previously, when you looked at a view on a dashboard, you had two options. One was to add new records to the view, and the other was to search within that view. We have added the ability to quick filter when you're looking at a view on your dashboard. Okay, search is great. It can search a lot of data really quickly, but sometimes you need more granular search results, and that's where quick filtering comes in. So if you wanted to see, you know, the orders where the quantity is greater than 50, you can quickly get to that information right from within the dashboard. There's no need to go open the view to be able to quick filter. Again, this is trying to surface information faster for you and your end users, right? Give them the information faster than they could get it before was the goal with this feature, okay? This also applies if we're looking at views on forms. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop open one of these products here just by clicking on one. And on this form that we're directed to, there's again a view on the form. Previously, you could only add records to this child view. Now you can search, quick filter, and sort, okay? Again, opening up functionality for your end users to make it easier for them to find data, okay? All right, let's hop back to the sales rep home dashboard here. We have covered 2 of the 4 features I'm gonna talk you through today. So make sure as you're watching this, you're getting questions in if you have them, okay? So when we get to the question section, we can answer those. All right, now to move on to my personal favorite, Weblinks on dashboards. So if you've designed dashboards in the past, you know that there's really only a few things that you can add to your dashboards. You know, your forms, your views, your flows, and then some shortcut buttons, right? We have added a new element that you can add to a dashboard, and this is a button that will direct the user to any URL that you provide, okay? So I'm gonna show you real quick how to add one of those buttons, and then we'll go over a couple of use cases that you could potentially explore using in your own accounts. So I'm gonna edit this sales rep home dashboard just by clicking on the pencil icon, okay? It gets me to the dashboard designer. Over on the left-hand side here, I'm gonna navigate over to this widgets tab, and you'll see that we have a new option for a web link, okay? Now there are really 2 different ways that you can insert a web link onto your dashboards. You can add a standalone button, or you can add a button to a shortcut panel. So we'll look at both of those options real quick, okay? If I click the button here to add a web link, it's going to add a standalone button. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. See that we just get a pop-up that says, what do you wanna name the button? Maybe we call it TrackVia, and we supply the URL. Maybe we do trackvia.com. And then you just get a couple of options, whether or not you want to open in a new tab, if you want the button color to be solid or outlined, and then what color you want the button to be. So we're opening up some options for you in terms of customizing your. So I'm going to go with outline, and I'm going to choose a color. I'm just going to keep it blue, or maybe I'll make it green, and we'll hit done. And you'll see that I get that button here at the bottom of my dashboard, and I can move it around. I can place it where I'd like. Maybe I put it up here at the top, and they kind of just fill in this empty space. Okay, so now I have this standalone button here that when clicked will take me to the TrackVia website. The other way that you can use these new web links is to add them to a shortcut panel. So you can see this is a shortcut panel I already have on the dashboard. I can click on it, on this button, to add an item. And instead of 3 options like we used to have, we now have a 4th for the web link. And again, you just put in the label and the website. And then you can choose whether or not you want to open a new tab when you click on that button. We don't get the color options here because it's dictated by the theme of the account, by the other, in the same way that the other things on the shortcut are designed. So we can click done. We can see those buttons. If we save the dashboard, now we'll see those 2 buttons in the upper right-hand corner here. Okay, functionality-wise, if you click on it, it opens the TrackVia website. If you click on this one, same thing, because we told both of them to open the TrackVia website, okay? You can place any URL in here. This is kind of the obvious way to use it. Maybe you have an internal portal that you want to direct people to. Maybe there's another website where they can get, or they need to get additional information to complete this form that we have here on the dashboard, right? There's a lot of uses for that to point to external websites, okay? Let's look at 2 more options quickly, or 2 additional ways that you can use this, okay? The first way is to provide some help resources, onboarding resources, adoption resources to the user, okay? So you may have seen at the very bottom of this dashboard, I've included a shortcut panel down at the bottom asking the users if they need some help, okay? And I've included 2 buttons on this in this shortcut panel. I really like the way this looks. It kind of looks like a footer, if you will. I could imagine someone adding a footer like this to every dashboard that they create within TrackVia. And there's really two different buttons here. They're both web links. I can tell by the little icons there in the buttons. But if I click on the dashboard cheat sheet one, we've kind of just put together a proof of concept for what this might look like. It's going to direct us to a PDF document that we've hosted on an internal drive somewhere. That just gives the user some information about the dashboard that they're using. This is just a PDF document we created. There's a screenshot, some information about how to use the dashboard. But you can direct them to any help article as long as you can provide that unique URL to it, okay? Another way that you could use this is to add a mail to URL. The way that we've done this here is when you click on this button, it just opens up a Gmail, which is my native email client, with an email already populated to send to an email address. We've specified in the web link that it should go to the support@TrackVia email address, but you could absolutely swap this out with your own internal support email or an admin that knows about that process, or maybe even their manager, right? So you could use this type of button in many different ways. You can see any URL you provide will open when you click on a web link. So here's one way that you can use that. Let's look at one additional way that you can use these web links. Now, I'm going to pop over to this Manager Reporting tab here, and we're going to see a dashboard that some of you may find familiar. You may have seen this in the past in a different webinar or in a training course. This is the Manager Reporting dashboard now with a bunch of reports that our fictitious managers might want to see about their data, okay? This is a very lengthy dashboard. There's a lot of reports on here. We've talked about, you know, perhaps this needs to be split up into several smaller dashboards, okay? So we've gone ahead and done that, and I'll show you those dashboards here in a second. You'll see that we've taken all these views and we've kind of grouped them into like views and put them on 3 different dashboards. And when I show you those dashboards, what you'll see is we've also included some web links at the top of them, okay? So I'm gonna go to my dashboard dropdown and I'm gonna pop one open, which is the product reports. So this dashboard contains the reports from the dashboard we were just looking at related to product information, okay? So you can see those 2 views here. These web links at the top, if you click on them, will direct you to the other dashboards that we've created related to these reports. So if I click on the order reports web link, it's going to direct me to that dashboard. And if I click on the customer reports web link, it's going to direct me to the customer related reports, okay? So these are it, and this is kind of a cool experience because it seems like you're interacting with one dashboard here, just clicking between the tabs, but in reality, you're directing the user to 3 different dashboards. But it's a nice cohesive feeling experience. So really what we're talking about here is realizing that every view you create, every form you create, every dashboard you create within TrackVia has its own unique URLs, and you can also stick those into web link buttons. You can direct them to additional apps or you know, any place in TrackVia that has its own URL. So this is just another way that you can explore using that feature. Okay, I'm sure you will come up with 100 more ways to use this feature. It's new. I can't wait to see the ways that our customers come up to use this. All right, one more feature here real quick from me, and that's the ability to export one of these views. Okay, so we've got this chart here. We've heard from customers that we want to be able to export this data, and you historically have been able to export the data, but it actually gave you the raw data, the behind the scenes data that makes up this chart. We have now added the ability for you to click on the menu icon, click on export, and choose a different option, which is to export the chart in PNG format. So clicking on that will just ask me to download the chart. And if I save it, and I open it up, you'll see that it's just I can get this onto my screen here, right? It's the PNG of that chart. Okay, so you can then take this, stick it into a PowerPoint presentation, stick it into an email, whatever you might need to do with that image. Okay, so those are the 4 features I wanted to show you today. Let's see, jump back to our PowerPoint presentation here. Let's do a quick question section. So anybody that has any questions about those features, we'll see if we can get some of those answered now before we move on to the next 2 feature topics. Did I miss anything, Isaac? Anything to add on any of those features?
No, thanks for going through that. I love the way that you are using Weblinks on dashboards to create that kind of cohesive experience. I know in my time here, I've built a lot of dashboards that I try to cram as much data as I can onto them, and sometimes it's like not the greatest user experience with things taking a while to load. So I love being able to break that out for performance reasons and just for the user experience. Really, really nice.
Yep, awesome. I know, I think there's endless possibilities of the way to use that feature. So excited to see what people come up with. I don't think we have any questions yet. We'll give it one more second. Oh, maybe there are. I think I see a couple coming through here. So, all right. Question from, can't see who this one's from. Go ahead and answer it though. If the flow, okay, so this is from Michael. Thanks, Michael. If the flow starts with a form, what number is displayed in the bubble in that button? Great question. Thanks for asking. The bubbles will only show up with the record count. The bubbles will only show up if you are directing the user to a view. So the flow must start with a view in order for the bubble to show up. If you're directing them to a form right away, no bubble is going to appear, okay? Same with a button that points somebody to a view that is not a grid view. If it's just a button in a shortcut and you click on it and it brings you to a chart or a form or something like that, no bubble, okay? All right, from Miles, can you do a calculated web link? So the web links are static URLs. So you have to provide the exact URL that you want them to be directed to when you click it. So I don't believe there'd be a way to put a dynamic URL in there. But that would be a really interesting thing to try to explore.
Yeah, and a great feature request. It is something that we've heard regarding a new calculated URL field type. No development on that yet, but it is something that we have heard and that we're looking at, and that I think there will be a lot of really cool use cases for. So hopefully, as we move forward, be able to investigate that a little more, look at the value for calculated URL fields, and I would love to get them in the system. They're a really cool feature.
And then we got one more from Matt here. When I was clicking through those dashboard tabs, or when I was clicking through the web links that were pseudo dashboard tabs there, they didn't appear in the actual dashboard tabs of my application. Basically, this dashboard here, as I was clicking through these, you'll notice that these 3 dashboards did not show up in these dashboard tabs. It's just due to my permissions. So I am an admin in this application. I'm a super admin, and I haven't actually gone ahead and given myself permission to these dashboards. If you had dashboard tabs enabled and you had assigned these 3 dashboards to a user, you would, Matt, see them show up here in these dashboard tabs and this drop-down list.
Got it. Yeah, I think I took over the screen share.
Yeah, Isaac has the screen share now. But yes, normally you would see those tabs up there, and the user would be able to switch to them. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. think that's it for questions right now. So let's move on to our next couple of features that Isaac's going to be walking us through.
Cool, let's do it. Excellent. And I think, Derek, you should be able to see my screen. Is that coming across for you?
Yep.
Awesome. So the first thing that we're going to talk about on my side is testing integrations in sandboxes. So, okay, there's already a couple big topics here kind of smashed together. Sandboxes, promotable sandboxes, integrations, and all the different flavors of integrations that we support in TrackVia. So rather than jump into an account, I'm going to just walk through a couple slides because I think it's the easiest way to talk through what this new capability is and how you might be able to leverage it in your account. So the first thing to remember has to do with all of the different ways that we can integrate with TrackVia. And there's 3 primary ways to create integrations that I'm going to cover today. We can create integrations between TrackVia and other systems using Workato recipes. So for those of you who have the TrackVia Integrations Center as a part of your account, you'll be familiar, hopefully, with creating recipes. For those who maybe don't leverage the integrations platform, but still have developers or still have code that you use that you've loaded into TrackVia itself, you might be familiar with the paradigm of microservices. Those are custom integrations that you've coded, that you've loaded into TrackVia, that we store and we run for you on the platform based on specified table actions or table events that occur within your account. So records being added, edited, or deleted from specific tables. And last but not least, we have kind of what people normally think about when they think integrations, and that's just the big, broad world of the open API. So the interface that we offer that allows other systems to be able to query into your TrackVia account, to be able to access specific data within your account, be able to perform complex calculations or actions on those records. And oftentimes, companies will utilize the open API to create robust connections between one or more company systems. So, regardless of how you integrate TrackVia with other systems within your organization, whether or not you use Workato or even another service like Zapier, Microservices, or the open API, for all of these situations, you now have the ability to test integrations that you've created against a sandbox account that you may have associated with your primary production account. So for those of you who aren't familiar with sandboxes, definitely go check out our knowledge base, check out some of our previous recordings on sandboxes. Sandboxes are a really cool feature that let you make a copy of your TrackVia account so that you can add new features, modify, test out, have users test new functionality before you deploy those features to production and update your production account. So a robust kind of playground to be able to work on new functionality. And what we're looking at here is how you can take your integrations, point them at a sandbox account, validate that they exist, that they're working properly, doing everything you want before you go ahead and deploy them to your production account. So the first thing that we're going to have to be aware of and want to take note of when we're looking at this process is we want to make note of what the account ID is for the specific sandbox account that you're going to be testing against. And so here I've got a little screenshot just reminding all of us that the way that you find that account ID is within your sandbox account, navigating up to the My Account area, Of course, you have to be logged into this sandbox as a super administrator. So either as yourself as a super admin, or you have to impersonate another super admin as you log into the sandbox. In the My Account area, you're going to find under the account info, little 5-6 digit numeral, and that's your account ID. Every sandbox is going to have a unique account ID, and you want to make note of that when you're going to set up integrations tests. We'll see how that plays into this in just a moment. You want to make sure you've got that bookmarked, got that written down somewhere. Once you have your account ID, let's go ahead and take a look just at the 3 examples that I mentioned. The first one has to do with setting up a new connection within the TrackVia integrations platform. And as you know, you might have heard the word Workato. Our integrations platform is powered through a partnership with the integrations company Workato. So you'll hear it referred to variously as TrackVia integrations platform or Workato. They're the same thing, and they're our partnership that allow us to make these robust connections really simply, drag and drop, and without any coding, being able to connect TrackVia to other systems within your organization. And so what we're looking at here is when you are creating a new project within the TrackVia integrations platform, the first thing that you have to do, as you know, is you have to create the connections that are necessary between the integrations platform and your TrackVia account and your other third-party systems that you're integrating with. So what we're seeing here is when you create a new connection to TrackVia, you now have a parameter, you have an option on this connections screen to be able to specify at the bottom the exact account ID within your TrackVia environment that you would like to connect to. Previously, when you set up a TrackVia connection in the Integration Center, we just connected to your production account. So we connected to your main account where all of your users are working. Now you can specify the sandbox ID within this connection so that when you create a new connection, you'll see here, I named this connection my sandbox connection. I gave it a little name. The project that I'm building is just integrations testing. I gave it a little description that said, this is the connection where I'm going to build all of the tests that will be pointed against my sandbox. And then I'm going to feed it the specific sandbox ID that I just grabbed from my sandbox, connect to the account. And that means that any integration recipes that I build with this connection will be hitting my sandbox account rather than my production account. So then I can really easily go ahead, spin up any integration recipes that I need, test things out, see them working against the sandbox until I feel confident and comfortable enough to change the connection within Workato, within the Integrations Center, and change it to then point to my production account. So I can easily test things out, feel good, feel confident, get the sign off, and then change that connection to point to production when I'm ready to go live in production with my integration. So, okay, that looks at just the place where you need to think about the account ID if you are building Workato recipes. Next, we're going to look at microservices and the Open API. So previously, before this release, you might remember that if you signed into a sandbox account, we actually blocked you from being able to access the microservices area within your user profile dropdown. You can access this area in production if you have microservices enabled on your account, but we prevented you from being even able to get here in sandboxes. So you couldn't attach microservices to a sandbox account. Well, that's changed. And essentially, all that we did is we opened up the ability to navigate to microservices, and then everything works exactly the same as it would in production. you can add microservices to your account, and then you can navigate to the specific tables within your sandbox account that need to trigger those microservices. And you can configure the microservices within your sandbox account and then add, edit, delete data, whatever you need to do within your sandbox to test out that those microservices are working as expected. So just opening up this ability to do some more hardened testing within the sandbox for your microservices. Now, just a couple notes here before we move on. We've gotten some questions from folks since this feature launched about how testing microservices in a sandbox plays with promotable sandboxes. And for those of you who might be aware of that feature as well, promotable sandboxes are the feature where we allow you to, with a click of a button, move your changes from a sandbox account and overwrite your production account with all those changes that you made. It's a super cool, really wonderful feature for customers that have a strong culture of governance in the application lifecycle management cycles that you use in your companies. But there is a note here. The microservices that you're attaching and testing in a sandbox are not going to be copied over to production automatically when you promote the changes that you've made to applications in your sandbox account. So what that means is that you can test things out in the sandbox, add your microservices, do whatever you need, and then when you push your changes over to production, you will need to take a moment and you will need to re-upload and reattach those microservices to your production account the exact same way that you attached them to your sandbox account. We just didn't want to risk doing anything that could affect anybody's microservice and integrations infrastructure, so you've got to handle those manually when you attach them to production. Now, what if you are integrating with TrackVia, but you're not using the integrations platform, you're not using microservices, maybe your company has its own server and its own dedicated IT team who have integrations code loaded on your own server in your company's network, and you're just using the open API to hit TrackVia. How do you make sure that your developers can hit the appropriate sandbox account that they need when they're testing development rather than hitting your production account? Well, it's very, very easy. What you'll notice is your developers, they should see in the HTTP header requests that are being sent to TrackVia to do things like add records or get information from TrackVia or modify records. There is a new parameter. It's an optional parameter called the account ID parameter. Any of your developers or more technical folks should be able to find this very easily using a tool like Postman or just looking at the network requests that are happening between your systems. All you want to do is make sure that account ID has that sandbox account ID populated, and then all of the requests that are being made will be routed to the specific sandbox that you're trying to test against. And if your folks come back and they say, well, how does this all work? I have an API user who is set up to test against production or run integrations against production. Do I need to set up another API user and manage another set of tokens and keys? The answer is no. You can use the same tokens and keys to access TrackVia the same way that you're running your integrations against production. You can use the same tokens and keys to validate and authorize yourself against the sandbox. You just want to make sure that that account ID parameter is populated correctly, so all the integrations you're trying to do hit your sandbox account when you're running those integration tests. All right, so a little bit more technical. I understand that this feature won't apply, these features won't apply to everybody who's on the call, but if you're making use of integrations, if you're working in sandboxes to test and mature your development before you deploy new features to production. This is a really great set of capabilities that we've opened up. We've seen a lot of customers just get a lot of value really immediately from being able to use this more kind of foolproof, mature, enterprise level process for testing integrations. So love to hear what people think. Obviously, if you've got any questions that have come up, make sure to take note of them. We're going to jump into another questions section in just a minute. But first, I want to transition over to talk about a really exciting new mobile feature that we recently released called FasTrack. So let's see, I'm going to pull this down and we're going to see if we can see an actual TrackVia account. Looks like everybody should be able to see, whoops, get into my mobile device here. Everybody should be able to see a TrackVia account on the left, and then the mobile representation of that account on the right. So we're looking at a fictitious manufacturing use case that I built in my account, and I'm looking at my QC team dashboard. So this is a fictitious company that, kind of similar to what Derrick mentioned, we make tools, and who knows, maybe we make the cell phones that he is selling out to celebrities. Obviously, you do anything you want with our use cases. But what we're going to be looking at today is a feature that has been added that is a mobile first feature that is available to app admin and super admin on both the iOS and the Android native mobile apps. And this is a feature that's really interesting. I'm really excited about it, and I'm really curious how it's going to continue to evolve and how folks are going to use it. It's a feature that helps you quickly digitize any paper form processes that you have within your business. Potentially, new business units or colleagues that, maybe they don't fully understand yet exactly what this whole low code thing is about. I think it's a really cool feature to help educate colleagues and to be able to show people kind of and get them acclimated to what this whole low code application development journey can be all about. So let's dive in and take a look at it. Over here on the right-hand side of my screen, I'm going to go ahead and open up the main level sidebar navigation. I'm looking at the iOS app. It's going to look very, very similar on Android, but just for the purposes of today's demo, I'm going to take a look at it on iOS. And we're going to see a new feature right here in the middle of the sidebar called FasTrack. We've got a little beta badge next to this feature that you're going to notice, and that's because this feature is going to mature and it is going to be changing over the next couple months. It'll probably be about 3 to 4 months while we keep this tag here until we feel confident enough that we take it off and we're ready to just let it be a native feature within the system. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's really cool and the kind of technology that we're using that's powering this feature once we get into it and we see exactly what it's doing and how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to be taken through a very simple flow. It's only a couple steps, but there are some really cool things that are happening to be able to easily convert any digital forms, any forms that you have, either as screenshots or PDFs, or even use the camera on your mobile device to be able to take a picture of a data entry form and create the resources within your TrackVia account to have a fully functional data collection application built in just a number of seconds. So let's see exactly what I'm talking about, because it kind of sounds like magic when I try to talk about what exactly this feature is doing. So I'm going to go here and tap on the upload button in the middle of the screen, and you'll see that I've got 3 different possibilities. I can either activate the camera on my device, I can grab a screenshot or a document from my camera roll, or I can access other services like iCloud or Google Drive or anything that's connected to my device. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to open up my camera roll, and I'm going to grab a digital form. It's a screenshot that one of my coworkers sent me. That is a form that they were using. This is a medical use case that they were using for their patient intake process. So imagine a clinic or a hospital or medical use case where all of us know that when you go to the doctors, you've got to fill out a bunch of paperwork. They still give you a clipboard and you fill out 10 things and you hand it back to them. Well, one of my coworkers said, hey, could we turn this into an app that's really easy to use? Could we build it in TrackVia? And could we have folks just fill everything out on an iPad, make it a little bit easier for everyone? So what I'm going to do is take this PDF of this form. You'll see that it's completely empty. It doesn't have any data filled in. It's just the form itself. I'm going to select it. I get a little icon letting me know that I've selected the right document. And I'm actually going to pull that up because it's a little small. So I'm going to pull this up so we can see the form side by side. This is the patient intake form that I've got on my computer that we're going to be digitizing. And now I'm just going to click this transform button at the bottom of my mobile device. You'll notice that we're going to take a second. We are right now running through a process that takes that form. We are scanning it, we're looking at it, and we're doing a couple really cool things. And now this is taking just a little bit longer than normal, I think because of the connection of my home network, but we'll give this a second. Normally this will resolve very, very quickly. And what we're doing is we're identifying all of the fields that we see on this form that we believe should be fields within a new TrackVia table that we're going to be creating in your account. And we're going a step further, and we're also looking at those field names, and we are guessing what the data type should be based on all of the other fields that we have loaded in TrackVia in our system. So we're using, whoops, here, let's make sure that I am connected to the network that I thought I was. Sorry about that, everyone. Just gonna hop back on. All right. Connected, full bars, let's do that again. My apologies, sometimes my home network is a little finicky.
I'll say one thing while you're pulling that back up, Isaac. One of our coworkers the other day actually also just drew out, hand wrote a form, and then took a picture of it using this app or using FasTrack to create an app, which was kind of cool. And so instead of starting with a PDF or even a JPEG or something like that, just drew it out and took a picture, which seemed like a really neat way to start an app from scratch.
Yeah, a very awesome way. And the cool thing about the technology that we're using, if I can get it to spin up on my device, is that we are setting the groundwork for not only being able to digitize all of the elements that are on a form, but eventually being able to scan and read all of the data that is written on a form as well. So we've heard, a lot that there are instances out there where you can't fully get away from paper. You need paper forms. They're still going to exist. Subcontractors require them. Vendors that you're working with require them. You can't fully get rid of it in your organization. So we're looking at new ways to be able to actually leverage the power and the tools that we're using here to do optical character recognition, grab all of the data, and eventually be able to populate that into TrackVia as well. But now let's see if I got my system back running in a good place. Give this just a second. And there we go. So, okay, yeah, it was a little network connection issue on my side. Apologies for that. But now you saw that that just took a couple seconds. And what are we looking at here on the mobile app now? Well, it's actually really exciting. We are looking at the first introduction of any admin tools on the mobile app. Historically, the mobile app is just for data users. It's for folks that are out in the field. FasTrack really represents the first time that we have admin builder capabilities on the mobile device. And what we're looking at here is a form builder. So just like the form builder you're familiar with on web, this is slimmed down to work on the mobile devices. I'm going to take you through a couple of the things that we can do here. So at the very top of our screen, you can see that I've got a big button to add a new field. If the process that we just ran through missed any of the fields on your form, now you're going to see this did a pretty amazing job just grabbing all of the fields off of the patient intake form that I just uploaded. And it did some cool things, like it knew that date of birth is probably going to be a date field here in the middle. We took a wild guess that you probably want to set up email address as an email field here. But if it missed anything, or if there's other fields that you know you're going to need to build into your use case, you can go ahead, add a new field. We give you the opportunity to give it a little label. Actually, here, maybe I'll call this patient ID, maybe something that we're not capturing on the paper form, but we know that we're going to need to capture in this new intake process we're building. And then, of course, I get the ability to set what kind of field type we want to set that field as. And you'll see that we have all of the different field types that you'll be familiar with, except in this first version of the tool, we're not allowing you to build calculations and triggered fields on the mobile device. We're saving that for V2 to get a little bit more complex and a deeper builder experience. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose number, set my patient ID, click done up in the upper right. I've added a new patient ID field to the bottom of my form. And maybe I know that I want that to actually show up at the very top. Well, any of the fields that are here that we've digitized, you can go ahead and drag and drop to change the exact location, rearrange these fields however you'd like. If there was a field that we scanned that you actually don't need, for example, maybe we're not going to be capturing this particular name field since we already have patient ID, you can always just go ahead, swipe, and delete any of the fields that were captured. And if you need to change the data type for any of the fields that were captured, you can go ahead and click into the field, change the data type. And for example, I'm looking at a field called marital status. I'm going to go ahead and change that from a single line field to a drop-down list so that it's a little more controlled. And then I'm going to go ahead and populate the options that I want to appear in that drop-down list, just like I would when I'm setting up and building a new field in the table builder on web. So I'll go ahead and click done. So now I've done a little customization on this form. I've changed it a little bit to reflect what my needs are exactly going to be in TrackVia. And I'm going to click save. Now, this is really cool. On this screen, I'm able to choose what I want to happen with this form that I just scanned. And depending on whether or not you are an app admin or a super admin, you're going to see a couple different options here. If you're a super admin, you'll have the ability to actually build an entirely new app within your account based on what we just scanned. If you are an app admin, you have the ability to really easily go ahead and add this form to any existing app that you already have access to, that you have app admin privileges in. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and build a new app. I'm going to call this my patient intake app. Hit done. Whoops. Hit done. complete the form, and then we're going to see one more screen where we are creating our resources. Should just take a couple seconds. And while that's happening, I'm going to hop back to my actual TrackVia account so that we can see very quickly on both the mobile and on the web experience that all of a sudden, let me go ahead and refresh my web browser. We have a bunch of new resources that have been created in this account that are available for us to use and go ahead and permiss out to our users and connect to any existing use cases that we might need to connect this to. So here in my app dropdown, I have a brand new patient intake app that wasn't here before. And in that app, we have a table that has been created with all of the different fields and field types that I specified and scanned from my form. We have a custom view that's been created that honors the column order of the form that I created on mobile. We created that custom form for you so that you can immediately go and permiss it out to your users. And we actually stuck both of those things onto a brand new dashboard where you can see that you've got the patient intake form, the view, and you can really quickly, for starting a new use case, if you just need to start collecting data instantly, this is really, really quick. I can go and I can just start adding information to this form, see the records populate, and have everything available for my new use case. It's obviously available on mobile, on the mobile app as well. One thing just to mention is that we did not go so far with this first version as to permiss any of these items to any roles within your account. So because you are an app admin or a super admin, when you're running through this process of really quickly digitizing and creating some new resources, we don't know exactly what existing roles you might want to have access to these resources, and we didn't want to give them out, kind of willy-nilly and just permiss them to people who might not need access to them. So only your app admin and super admin are going to be able to access these resources initially, and then you can come into web, you can continue to customize, continue to change, continue to build out whatever you need to, just the same way that you would as with any of your, your other applications within TrackVia. And so you can see here on the right-hand side, I've got my simple dashboard also available to me, my patient intake form dashboard. I can hop in, I can start to create, add records if I need to right on the fly on mobile, see the view, see them start to get records collected. And that's really the full life cycle. That's the full journey of this very first tip of the iceberg feature, allowing us to digitize things and create TrackVia apps just like that in under a minute. So with that, I see that we are coming up to the top of the hour. I'm going to hop back to my PowerPoint slide here and open it up for questions. Want to be respectful of everybody's time, but we're going to hang out for a couple minutes. We'll take any questions and then wrap up for anyone who's able to stick on for a couple minutes. So let's see. Derek, are we seeing anything come in? I'm not seeing anything on my side.
Yep, got a couple of questions here. From Rashida, can microservices work on promotable sandboxes? So I think, Isaac, you touched on that. I believe, yes, you can point them to promotable sandboxes, but the promotion itself will not promote an integration. You have to go in and then you have to recreate that in production account.
Right, we won't copy the microservice over to production when you promote, but yes, Rashida, you can put your microservices on a promotable sandbox just like you can any other sandbox, test it out, and it should work just fine.
We've got a question, Isaac, from Casey about whether or not FasTrack is going to be available on web in the future.
Awesome question. Yes. So we wanted to roll this feature out initially on mobile to kind of get used to the technology, gauge the adoption. We are looking at some opportunities for potentially building an experience similar to this into the web experience. Obviously, we have a lot more opportunity to make this a really custom, really cool experience on web where you're just uploading a PDF and creating a whole app. So it's going to take a little more work to get there, but it's definitely something that the product team is looking at. And I would actually love to talk about your particular use case. I'll reach out to you, or I'll have somebody from product reach out to you. Would love to just hear a little bit more about what you'd be interested in doing there.
And then just one more real quick from Leslie about, so does this mean we're looking at the possibility in the future of uploading paper forms full of data and creating records from those in the future?
Yes, that is my hope, and we're not there yet. It's a really, really complicated problem, and we are working on it with the teams. But what we've done with this feature is we have built and we have installed the necessary technology that we're going to need to get there. So being able to scan that form, being able to read the form labels, read the field labels, choose the data types correctly, associate them with resources in TrackVia. We needed to get all of that stuff done first as the foundation. But yes, it is my hope that we are going to continue to work towards getting that full capability to scan a form full of data, have data entry be able to happen that way. I'm really excited to keep working on that. It's a big effort. I don't have any particular timeline for that. We wanted to roll this out first, get some feedback, get people using it, continue to harden the technology, and then work towards that use case. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So we're at the top of the hour now. Let's, Isaac, just quickly click through key takeaways. We've released some really cool new features in TrackVia, dashboard widgets that point to URLs, sorting and viewing on sorting and quick filtering on views, the FasTrack feature, which is the big new exciting one that's going to lead to a lot more to come, and then allowing integrations to point on sandboxes are some of the key ones that we talked about today. So wrapping things up here, one more slide. Yep, remember that we have information on these things on the TrackVia University website. We've got a couple of courses on FasTrack. Feel free to check those out to learn more. If you have questions, of course, you can always reach out to the support team, or if you're looking for some additional help, some hands-on building type help to implement some of these things in your account, remember that we're always there to help you with professional services. What else? We've got our next webinar coming up, which is actually going to be the webinar of the year on citizen development, presenters and dates to come on that. So keep your eyes out for that next webinar. And then, of course, you'll get a recording of this at the end with a brief survey, and we really appreciate if you fill it out. So thanks for sticking in there through the hour. Thanks for participating today. And if we missed your questions, we will follow up via email as well. So thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks so much.